Hey, Jaryd Krause here, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I'm doing something a little different. I've decided to do something very specific and intentional for you guys, and that's talking publicly about mindset. Now, I teach a lot of mindset to my clients, and having the right mindset is actually foundational to achieving anything in life, which is why I've decided to do a 4-part mindset series on the podcast for you all, because like I said, this is foundational. And without the right mindset, you won't get very far on your journey to buying a website business. And I'm certain that there are so many of you listening who want to buy a website but haven't, or feel like you can't, or have been sitting on the fence for a while and hanging about for any number of reasons. And I have no doubt it's because you haven't set the foundations first by collapsing a solid mindset for yourself to participate on this actual journey. So this episode is part 2. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1. You should listen to this first, as it's on the one thing every successful website investor has that you don't. And I talk about that in the episode. And once you have that one thing that I talk about in part 1, then here in this episode in part 2, this is where I talk about how to execute on that and how to become a confident website investor. So if you're looking to become a confident website investor, this episode is for you. So let's get stuck in. Today's episode is brought to you by us here at Buying Online Businesses. Let me ask, if you have an online business, have you ever thought of selling it? We're a thriving community of website investors who are cashed up and hungry to buy your online business. Our members are well trained in online business due diligence, allowing you a quick sale of your business. And because we only want to provide a better service to our members, we're opening up the doors to allow you to sell your online business to us free of charge. So if you have an online business that's making a minimum net profit of $5,000 per year and you're thinking of selling your business, head over to our Sell Your Business page at buyingonlinebusinesses.co/sell your business. There will be a link in the show notes, and you can also find this page from our site, buyingonlinebusinesses.com. That's buyingonlinebusinesses.com. And I want to start with a bit of a story. Now, I had this mentor who makes about $60 million per year and teaches people to invest in property. As I learned from him, I kept noticing him saying that courage comes before confidence. Now, he used to say a lot of things, and I took a lot of notes, and I still do. And he used to keep saying, courage comes before confidence. And I'm not sure if anybody truly got what he was saying. And I'm a deep thinker, and I like to break things down and digest them. And so I kept thinking on this, courage comes before confidence. And I thought it's actually quite hard for someone to just snap and become courageous. I mean, why would somebody just all of a sudden become courageous, right? So I thought, because you can't just snap your fingers and become courageous, you need something first to push you to become courageous. And I kept pondering on that, what that may be. And I discovered that those who are courageous only become courageous for one reason. And that's because they wholeheartedly and have fully committed to something. Okay. So for example, if you see your baby who is trapped under a burning car and the car's about to explode, I know that's quite graphical and bad, but this is an explanation that you're only going to be courageous enough by becoming fully committed. Nothing's going to stop you. Nothing's going to get in your way of saving your baby, right? You're fully committed wholeheartedly. And only then, when you're fully committed, can you become courageous enough to do something so crazy like lift a car and pull your baby out from underneath, right? And that's when I thought about this further. And I took something to my mentor and packaged it up, because he kept saying courage comes before confidence. And then I started teaching it to people. I started breaking down a little bit of what he started and added to it. And I called this the 3 C's to achievement. So he kept saying courage comes before confidence, but in the 3 C's to achievement, first comes commitment. Commitment comes first. That comes before courage. And then courage comes before commitment. And you need to progress through each of these stages to achieve anything, right? Especially like buying a website. And anybody who achieves anything in life goes through this process. We all do it, whether you're conscious of it or not. And I'll tell you a story in a second about how you may have done this in your life like I have. So what I'm going to break down here is each of these 3 C's to achievement, just a theory on how you get to them and how you end up going through those 3 stages and becoming confident as a website investor, or confident in anything for that matter. Now, you can use this for anything, but our goal here is to help you become confident at buying a website. So commitment, right? Commitment's first. How do we become committed? Like I said before, we can't just snap our fingers and become courageous. Neither can we just snap our fingers and become committed. So what do? We need a reason. We need a reason. And that reason is what we talked about in part 1. So if you haven't done part 1, listen to it. Because what we learn and practice in part 1, which is having a vision, this is what actually allows us to be committed. Without having a regular focus on that vision, on that thing that we want to achieve, without constantly focusing on that and playing that vision in our mind, we have no reason to be committed. We've got nothing to commit to. But once we know what that is, that vision, once we focus on it, then we have something that allows us to be committed, right? Committed to achieving that goal, committed to achieving that life, whether it be having more time to travel, more time with our kids, friends, family, reading, hiking, surfing is what I like to do. The more you focus on what we talked about in part 1, the more you focus on that vision, the more we become committed. So if you're not committed to something, you're not going to be able to achieve anything. People only achieve something if they're really committed to it, right? People won't go away and do something and achieve amazing things if they're doing it half-assed. You need to be fully committed, which is why we need to be fully invested in our vision. So you get the point. Commitment is the first stage in the 3 C's to achievement. And then we move on to the next stage. And you can only move on to the next stage once you are committed, because the next stage is courage. And like I said earlier, you can't just be courageous. You can't just snap your fingers and become courageous without knowing why or having something to commit to. So once you're committed, then nothing's stopping you. Nothing at all. And that's where courage comes in. You become courageous enough to give it a go, to give anything a go, though you don't know what you're in for, but you're courageous enough to give it a go. But you've made that decision. You've made your decision, and anything you have to endure will be worth the very small sacrifice you make to achieve that goal of yours. For example, that courage you have now because of everything has led up to this to allow you to take those courageous steps of learning something new, doing the heavy lifting, things that you've never done before, throwing yourself into the deep end and trying to learn how everything works. But without that vision, and without that commitment, there's no way you would do some of the things you're about to do, right? On the journey that you're about to embark on, or even some of the things you may have already done. You wouldn't have done it without a vision and being committed to something. At a certain time, once you've done enough heavy lifting through that courageous period, through the learning and throwing yourself in the deep end and getting started and learning all these different things, and then through all of that experience, only then can you slowly start to move on to the next stage, which is being confident, right? We want to help you become a confident website investor. Now, you can't become confident unless you've done something before, unless you've got experience. So you could fake confidence, but true confidence only comes from experience. And I look back when I was younger and I was terrified to talk to women or walk up to women and talk to them or have a conversation with women. I had no idea what to do. And everybody just kept saying, just be confident. You just need to be confident and have conviction. And sure, you can try to be confident, but let's be honest, you're faking it. And most of the time the women can know that as well. So it's not until you actually have experience that you can become confident. And that experience can come from trying things and failing, or trying things over and over again until you two become successful. And then only then can you become confident. And it's the same with phone sales. I was terrified on the phone, right? And everyone said, you just need to have that conviction and be confident, stand up. And, I tried that. But in reality, I just wasn't, right? People on the end of the phone knew it. And it wasn't until I'd thrown myself into the deep end and done multiple calls and had that learning experience that allowed me to truly become confident. So that's the last stage. It's confidence. And that's what you want, right? You want to be a confident investor. But that only comes when you go through the stages, the 3 stages or the 3 C's of achievement. And I know. Like, I've just gone through the theory of all of this, and it seems quite easy, but it's not. It's scary. Of course, it's scary. All right. So what I want to do is I want to paint a bit of picture, right? And I want to tell you a story as an example of how this actually works in real life and how it's played out for me in real life. So when I was younger, I wanted money, right? I was hungry to have a good life, and I wanted, I knew that money was a big part of that, and I wanted to have a car. Now, I know it's not everything, but let's stick to the story here. So I wanted more money, and at the time I was 14. I was earning about $5 per week because I was doing the paper round. But because I had a vision of me owning my own car, being able to drive around, drive myself and my friends to and from school, drive myself to work, have this life of freedom, then I had to progress through the 3 C's of achievement. And because I had this vision, right, and I really wanted this bad enough, I really wanted this car, I really wanted this freedom, I was committed. Right? Without that vision, I couldn't be committed. So I was so committed, I would just do almost anything for money. Now, almost anything. So with that commitment, I went out and tried to get a job. I tried over and over and over, and eventually I got a job. I got a job in a fast food chain that we have in here in Australia called Red Rooster. And I was young. I was 14. I was scared, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But because I was committed, I had that vision for that car, and I was committed, I got to the next stage. All right. And that next stage for me was courageous, being courageous enough to go into work, to meet all these people that are older than me, knew what they were doing, and start learning. I threw myself into the deep end, into a whole new world. And so I got into the deep end, I jumped in, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. After a few weeks, I started to get the hang of things, right? Sometimes I would drop things and, make a mess or stuff something up. But after a while, I started to learn. I started to learn from my mistakes and become more successful at some of the tasks that I needed to do in that job. And over time, I didn't need to ask as many questions, right? And I didn't need help as much as what I did when I first started. And after a few months, I started to become better and better and better. And I started to become confident. And I started getting better jobs and better tasks within that job. And pretty soon, I became so confident that myself and a friend, we were running the show. Right? We were closing the shop, opening the shop, closing the shop, and everyone started to lean on us for advice. And I look back now and I can vividly see how I went through each of those 3 C's of achievement. First, I had to have that vision, right, for the car, for the freedom when I was at a certain age, when I turned 17, because you can get your driver's license at 17 here in Australia. And then once I had that vision, then I was committed. I was fully bought in. I was committed and nothing would get in my way. So I was courageous enough, right? And then the hard part was moving from courage to confidence. And this is where a lot of people get lost. And we'll talk about that in the next part of this series. And that's what I want for you. I want you to become confident as well. I want you to become a confident website investor. And the reality of it is that, yes, it's scary. Yes, you will have to learn something new. Yes, you will have to go through and look at a bunch of different websites. Yes, you'll have to do due diligence. Yes, you'll have to speak to random people on the phone, sellers and brokers and all that sort of stuff. And yes, you'll have to put your money where your mouth is and slowly start become confident. But if you have your vision and you follow those 3 C's to achievement, then you're destined to become confident at this. So there it is. That's how you become a confident website investor. And I know I went through all of this in theory with you, and you heard some stories. I gave you some examples. But like I always say to my students, you just can't learn the theory. You just can't learn the theory alone and just know what to do. Because to know and not do is to not know. You actually need to take that theory and put it into action. For example, you can't just read about riding a bicycle and then be confident that you can ride a bicycle. First, you need to get on the bike, you need to fall down, scratch your knees, pick yourself back up and keep learning this experience. And it's the same with buying a website business. First, you need to look at a website, do some due diligence. Often the time that people that look at the first website or do the due diligence on the first website, it's not the website they end up buying. And I look at multiple businesses with one person before they end up buying the right business that's right for them. And before they get skilled enough to pick up the things that they couldn't when they first started, and they become confident. And that's where your confidence comes from. That's how you become a confident website investor. That's how you get the confidence to the certain stage where you can confidently invest in a business and know it's a good business. And it doesn't come just back from sitting down and reading theory and listening to these podcasts and all that sort of stuff. You need to go away and take the action. So what I want you to do is understand that process. Understand part 1 of the vision. Understand part 2, the 3 C's of achievement, and stick with that process, and you will achieve your goals. How do I know this? Because I've done it myself. My clients have done it. And I can confidently say that none of my students have bought businesses without going through this first. So some people try and skip steps and just buy a site with no knowledge and in either theory and experience, and that's just a silly mistake. You can't do that. Make sure you go through this process. It will be a little bit tougher, but if you have some help, if you have a guide, I guide people a lot. If you have a guide that can show you things and you can lean on them along the way, it makes this process so much easier. So guys, that's it for part 2. I have no doubt you learned a ton, right? And I actually really enjoyed it. And what I would like you to do is think of 2 to 3 people who have a goal. It can be anything they're looking to achieve, even if it's not buying a website like what you want to do. And once you know those 2 to 3 people, do them a massive favor and send them this podcast mindset series so they can learn the mindset you need to achieve anything, either buying a website or doing anything. So do that now. Send this podcast series to them, this mindset series to them. Do the massive favor so they don't give up on their goals along the way. Guys, that's it for this episode. In the next episode, in part 3, what we're going to talk about is just that, how not to give up. I'm going to cover what stops most people from buying a website business. And this is the key ingredient. And this is where almost everyone drops the ball and fails to achieve their goal. So don't miss it, guys. I'll see you on the next episode.